thing about Joe Rogan, he doesn't know he's Joe Rogan. Or he doesn't know that Joe Rogan's cool. It's one of the two, right? And you guys would agree. It's one of the reasons you like him so much. It's one of the reasons he can get away with so many things as you relate to him. So, and that's not a strategy. That's just him setting up a podcast and welcoming you in. But when you talk about the power of Joe Rogan, I felt it. That's a weird word to use. I don't get to use that word very often, that I felt something. When I'll make a YouTube video, and I'm always checking the numbers, right? Because you guys can see them. Not only am I audited, I'm publicly audited. My ego is directly related to what that number says. So I share that with you because I don't get to tell my partner Ryan very often, hey, I can feel this one. This one's coming back. What does that mean? That I can feel? Well, it means my social media lit up. Or it meant my DM box fell up. Or it meant I got calls from high school friends or text messages from people that don't text me very often that they saw it. I felt it. When I've done the Joe Rogan show, I can feel it. I wore a t-shirt, a Queensberry bad guy t-shirt. I was selling these things online. I wore that shirt on Joe's show. I never mentioned it once. Didn't know I had it on. What did it have it on for marketing? Did it have it on to sell it? I had it on because it's the shirt that my wife put in my bag when I got it from the hotel that I put it on and went to the show. Never mentioned it. Joe never brought it up. My phone was going off nonstop. I have something called a Shopify app. Every time somebody buys a shirt, boom, I get an alert. Bang, 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 bang. I had to turn it off during the show. And after the show, when I turned it on, it just kept going. So many people bought them. Now, that was only like 124 shirts. But I'm just sharing with you, I never mentioned them. I didn't even tell people where to go to find them. They saw the shirt. That many people were watching that logged on and then went through the process. I could feel it. And I bring this to you because Joe's got an idea. Joe is making a push, and I don't know how hard he's going to push. This might be a 1-week thing. But this is the week, and he is making a push for somebody to get behind kickboxing. Joe believes that kickboxing could be the next big thing. And it's an interesting concept because Joe took this idea to Dana. Joe laid out very briefly what he believes it's going to take for kickboxing to get over. But one of the things was somebody with major distribution and a major power to influence and deep pockets to get behind it. So he went to Dana. And Dana said, I'm not interested. I don't think that kickboxing is going to catch on, particularly with North America, the way that it has in other parts of the world. And that was where that conversation ended. But the ingredients that Joe pitched to Dana, from the deep pockets to the influence to somebody with major distribution, he just described himself. He just doesn't know that. And Joe tried to pitch in. He tried to volunteer. He said, well, if you do it, if somebody does it, I'll commentate it. That's wildly helpful. If you could get Joe Rogan to commentate your event, you are going to have success for whatever that event is. The podcast, the Joe Rogan experience used to be comedians visiting, smoking dope. And it is, while staying that, it has also transcended to every person who would like to be the president of the United States calling up and trying to get booked on that show. And if they get booked, they will then fly out to the studio in Texas where there's not a whole lot of other stuff to do. I mean, in all fairness, if you make a trip for that, that's the only thing that you're doing, media related, and it's still worth it. It is worth it to bring your team, book the tickets, get the hotel, do whatever you have to do to just have that show. That's not how it would work if you were going to go do, say, Fox News, just by example. You get out to New York City, you're in the media mecca, you go hit 5, 6, 8 different stops. If you go to do Joe's show, there aren't other programs out there. You're just going in to do Joe's show. That is a massive compliment to Joe. That is a massive statement to the power that he has. And I just bring that to you because if Joe wanted to do kickboxing, go do kickboxing. He knows the guys. He can fill up a card. He has the audience. It's you all. He has a commentator, apparently, which is himself. He has a distribution to get the word out, which, again, is the Joe Rogan program. I think it's an interesting concept. I don't hate the idea, I must tell you. I don't think that it has to be done in the way that Joe thinks it has to be done. I mean, it's a fringe sport, not for nothing. It doesn't have to just pop up on ESPN or pop up with a major announcement on pay-per-view. You don't even have to try to shove it down someone's throat and up somebody's ass like people are currently doing, where you bring them something they actually want to see and then you put on a kickboxing fight as well and force them to see it. It could be a standalone event. And I would be very curious about that. And when Joe says it's the next thing to break through, I would like him to finish that thought, because I think he's saying boxing's already gotten through, which would be true. MMA has already gotten through, which would be true. And his true love of grappling has already gotten through, which is not true at all. I mean, that's where I would have to stop and go, hey, wait a second. Don't act as though grappling is done. Grappling is not done. Grappling is not out there. There is not a skill set or a rule set. And that's the good news about kickboxing. The number one thing that's stopping grappling, we can call it jiu-jitsu, but let's just call it grappling, right? All the arts coming together. The number one thing that stops it is they don't have an agreed upon rule set. Every promoter that's got a few dollars to lose and can get somebody to air his product will make up his own set of rules. All of them. Polaris is not the same as EBI. Just by example, Abu Dhabi is not the same as either of those. And you could play that game until you're blue in the face. You're not going to find the same rule set anywhere, which is why it's not a real sport. You go to any gymnasium in the world. It could be at the elementary school. It could be at the park. It could be at a fancy NBA stadium. You go to any gymnasium in the world, you take a ball, you put it in the hoop, you get 2 points. You get fouled, you go to the free throw line. You get a point per basket. You're outside the 3-point line, you sink a ball, you get 3 points. You're going to play for 4 quarters. It doesn't matter if you're 9 years old or you're 29 years old. The rules are the same. They're going to start the game by bringing 2 guys to the middle and throwing the ball up. But it's the same. So now you can have sports commentators talking about it. You can have athletes come on your sports show and discuss it, because the world will know what you're doing. You can have a ranking system. You can't have a ranking system within grappling. And they don't. They have one guy. They have Gordon Ryan. Gordon Ryan's the best. You'll hear that all the time, and it's true, but you won't hear who number 2 is. You won't hear who number 6 is, because there's no system. There's no ranking system. You can't rank something when you don't even agree upon the rules. I think that's a major benefit to kickboxing. Not for nothing. I think that it is. When you go out there, you got your legs, you got your hands. We're going to make it kickboxing, not Muay Thai. What's the difference there? Where you can't knee, you can't elbow. I like that. Knees and elbows are too vicious. I'm not a prude, and I think that stuff is too vicious. It's an interesting concept, right? If there's a push being done by Joe Rogan, and again, this is likely the flavor of the week. Come next week, or more specifically next month, I don't know that he's still pushing it. But if he is, I mean, if there's one person that could come out with a message and draw interest, it's him. And if the world of kickboxing and or the leaders of kickboxing had the sense that God gave geese, they would contact him and they would try to get him to push this. The K1s and the Glories of the world would get a hold of Joe and say, hey, we're already doing this. Perhaps you don't know. I heard that you're willing to commentate it. We would really love that, right? I mean, there would be some kind of a concerted effort. But I don't know how real that community is. I don't know anybody that kickboxes. I mean, I went in and did kickboxing at an MMA gym. I know other people that were my teammates that went into an MMA gym that had a kickboxing class. I don't know of an actual kickboxing gym. I don't know of an actual kickboxer. And neither do you. You've never done it. If you wanted to do it today, you wouldn't know where to sign up and go and do it, unless it was a class within a different gym. I could push you even further and tell you to go buy the equipment needed, and you wouldn't know where to go buy it. Like, it's not an actual sport, but neither was MMA. You get a little interest. You start to get some young minds that look at it and say, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to dedicate to. There's a major opportunity here. There's a massive opportunity for kickboxing if you can keep Joe Rogan engaged. And Joe Rogan could turn to somebody else and say, I'll just stand there and commentate, or Joe Rogan could go out and do it himself. And the fact that Joe doesn't know that, I think, is very humbling. I think it's what makes him very sweet. But Joe would have that power. The same as he has the power to influence a presidential election. Okay, if a guy has the ability to influence who is going to be the leader of the free world, that guy can put on a kickboxing event.